Hey Ron, I wanted to touch on the whole vaccination debate again because it seemed like it kind of took some steam yesterday. Montez basically saying he's not really comfortable, pretty open. Um, are you concerned about maybe this? I wouldn't call it a divide, but some people feel one way in the locker room and some people feel the other way.
Well, I mean, it is, but the thing that as long as everybody respects each other's opinions and thoughts on it, there really isn't an issue, to be honest with you. And that's what we have to do. I mean, everybody has a choice to make, and if that's his opinion and that's his choice, then we respect it and we move on from that. I mean, that's probably one of the bigger problems I think we have right now is that not everybody's respecting each other's thoughts and opinions and not letting people make their own decisions. Montez spoke for himself and himself only, and that's his decision. And hey, you know what? I respect it.
How much of a competitive disadvantage will this football team be at if you don't get your 50% higher in terms of vaccination in that locker room?
Well, the disadvantage will only be created if we break the protocols. And if that's what we're going to have to do is live with the protocols, then we'll do it. We did it last year. We'll do it again this year. We're going to follow the rules. We're going to do it the right way. Would I like them to get vaccinated? Yes. And I think it's important. But, again, guys, you know what? Each person has to make their own decisions for themselves and what they think is best. So at that point, we live with it. We'll live with the situation and circumstances.
A really quick follow-up to what you just said. You want them to get vaccinated, but you have to find that balance, Ron, of not forcing them because, as you said, it's their choice. So how do you find that balance?
Well, I mean, again, you have to appeal to them. You have to give them reasons why. You have to try and help educate them as much as possible so they understand and get comfortable. More so than anything else, that's how you do it. To me, it does no good to fight with people. Again, we're all entitled to our opinions and our free thoughts.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wrapping up the mini camp, you correct me if I'm wrong. It certainly felt like the defense had a good day the last couple days, and it said that the defense is ahead of the offense with these things. What do you make of the progress so far by both units?
I like what we did on both sides and in special teams. I think the thing that we all have to understand about it is there's certain elements of offensive football you can't do out here. You're not cut blocking. You're not when a guy takes an inside charge, you're not washing him down into the next guy because we got to be careful out here. And so the balance is knowing how to practice in those situations and circumstances. Because again, if you get a defensive guy make an inside charge and the offensive player can't lock onto him and wash him down, guy's going to come through and make a play. Now, as far as the secondary is concerned, there are some really good things that happen out there. Really, really pleased with what we've seen with our back seven. A couple of really good plays. We had some nice balls thrown by the quarterbacks today, especially some of the deep balls. I think you guys got a good sense and flavor for the speed that's out there on the offensive receiver positions. Diami showed some real dynamic ability today. And so those are some of the positives that we can take from it as far as our offense is concerned too.
Yeah, with Brown, obviously, you've got a couple good players ahead of him. How do you make sure to get him involved in the offense?
It's a rotation is what it really is. I mean, that's why we talk about guys having position flex too. You don't want a receiver just only be able to play the X. You want to be able to play the Z, the X, and the F. I mean, that's important. And that's why we make sure guys can do more than one thing, because if they're only one whole player and one of your best players is playing the same spot, that guy will never get an opportunity. But if he can play the different positions, we'll find a way to get him on the field.
Ben? Hey, Ron, with regards to the...
Hey, Ben. Did you have to do a temperature today?
Charlie got me on that bit yesterday. I was good.
I heard about that.
I appreciate the attempt to mess with my brain. With regards to the receivers, obviously you'd like to have Curtis Samuel out there, but the fact that you've got some extra reps for some of these other guys at such a deep position.
Yep.
What do you think you've been able to sort of get a sense now that you've kind of gone through this about that group?
How deep we are. I mean, every guy that we have has the potential to be on this team. Every guy that's out there, with the exception of the young guys, has played minutes for us on the field, and the new guys. But the point being is we're deep. We have some really good football players there at that position. So we'll just have to work through it. And we'll have to go and see who stands out during camp, who has a good preseason, and make our decision from there. But Ben, to your question, I think it's a deep position. We have some guys that are multi-positional guys. That's going to help them when it's time to make decisions. It's going to be tough, and I really do mean that sincerely.
And with regards to the actual fields out here, obviously this new grass, new situation you guys have had out here, and you're going to have sort of reflect on what's going to happen at the stadium. What did you kind of learn about the field out here? What did it do, if anything, to help you guys throughout this process? And what did it maybe say, if anything, about what you're going to have at FedEx?
Well, it was pretty good turf out here. It really was. I mean, we didn't have to switch main practice fields, so we were able to stay close to you guys, first of all. But the big thing is, it's to give these guys quality football field, an opportunity to not have to worry about flopping from one spot to another, not worrying about wet spots or the grass being torn up. I'm very appreciative of the fact that we were able to do it. I really do mean that. I mean, I appreciate the commitment that Mr. Snyder's made in helping to create the right type of practice atmosphere for our guys, the right type of atmosphere here at the park for us, and at FedEx.
Hey, Ron, I'm curious, what kind of decisions do you guys still make with an eye toward the COVID, the pandemic, whatever, as far as like maybe even the way the scouts on the road, decisions you make as far as looking at the roster, those kind of things?
I don't intend to have anything like that really weigh on it. To me, it's about whether or not the guy's a good football player and can help us. Again, as I said, if that's our situation, that's our circumstances, we'll live in our circumstances. We're not going to sit here and say, "Well, it's me." We can't do that. I'm going to quote Mike Ditka, but we're going to play the hand that's dealt us, and whatever that hand is, we're going to play it to the best of our ability. So, if that's what it's going to be, then hey, you know what? We all got to accept it as a team and go from there.
But do you make decisions like what you talk about roster flexibility and how important that is, just in case something ever happens down the road? I mean, are there things that you look at still with an eye toward that?
I guess there might be, but again, the nice thing about it is the way the roster is going to be allowed to be built again. It's going to be very similar to what we had last year, with the new rules that came into play from the new CBA, and then some of the lenient rules that we had because of COVID. I think we'll have a little bit of that to work with, and so again, we'll have to do the best we can about being smart about those things.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Ron. Just overall, what was your assessment of the quarterback play over these last 3 days, and just generally, what were some of the things that I guess stood out to you, good or bad? Well,
first of all, how quickly things were picked up, how well fits jives with our receiving core, our tight ends, our running backs, the rapport he has with the offensive line. That was good to see. When Taylor got back in there, it was good to see Taylor. His the one thing that you can say about Taylor is he's an extremely accurate passer, delivers a really good ball to the receivers. His rapport with those guys is also very good. So it's going to be a good competition. It really is. I look forward to it. I think it's going to push our football team and make our football team better. I just feel that going into this, knowing we have a proven guy there that has the ability to lead us, but again, we have a guy in Taylor that shows us that he can do it. They're going to compete. They're going to push, and I'm looking forward to it.
And just seeing, some of the defensive players and the receivers just kind of jawing at each other in practice. Do you like that? Do you like the energy? I mean, what was just your take on all of it?
I love the energy. The only thing I want to make sure is we're smart about how we practice. We had a couple guys run into each other yesterday a little too hard because they were competing. That's great, but we also have to know how to practice. We have to know when we can cut it loose and compete, when we have to back off. And that's the thing that really I get concerned with, because I love the energy. I really did. When I brought the guys up afterwards, I thanked them for the commitment they made these last 4 weeks. We had about 75 guys come for the end of phase 2, week 5, which was outstanding because it was the first time we got to get on the field with our guys and get our hands on them and work with them. And they gave us a good week. Then we started off OTAs with having 87 guys show up the first day. And then going into the second week, we were able to get 88 guys. Tez showed up, and then now we had the entire number of guys here that we could have that were eligible to practice. So I really appreciated that, and I told them so. They gave us the kind of work we needed. We were able to get all our installations done, and because of it, I think we had a good few weeks of practice.
Hey Ron, have you noticed any differences in Scott Turner this year compared to last in terms of comfort on the job or
Yes.
things like that?
You see the comfort. You really do. You see the confidence, a little bit of swagger in his walk. I think part of it is the players we were able to put around our quarterbacks. I think that's very helpful. And it kind of goes back to, and I've told you guys this before. One of the things that Marty Herney and I talked about when I first got to Carolina, was we have to identify our quarterback. We've got to be able to surround him with playmakers, and we've got to be able to protect him. And I think we accomplished that this offseason. I feel very comfortable with what we've done with our offensive line and with the playmakers we've got. So, again, I can see it reflected in the way Scotty moves around and handles himself during practices, during our meetings.
And then a bit of a lighter one. What was the deal with Dustin's kick there to close out practice?
Well, what happened was we had one more period left, and then what we were going to do is we were going to do a mock of what our conditioning test was going to be like, and Dustin, somebody kind of said something, then Dustin stepped up and said, "Hey, I'll tell you what, Coach, I hit a 50-yarder. If I split it, let's call it a day." So I made the deal with him, and he split it, and that was kind of cool. The players really appreciated Dustin coming through for us like that, and there's a lot more to come for that.
Rhiannon, if Rhiannon's not on, Sam.
I'll step in. Hey Ron, when you kind of sit back and gauge the reaction of how the vaccine conversation went yesterday, I wonder, what's your next step, or have you been able to think that far ahead yet?
Well, I really haven't thought that far ahead. I have thought, though, that knowing these are young men, and to a degree, they're learning, they're understanding, they're trying to gather as much information as they can. Some of them have their reasons. I've went around and I've talked to a good number of our players, and I've listened and I've heard both sides, and I've heard reasoning. But again, I honestly I would hope or like to have our guys get vaccinated, so we can get that herd immunity. But again, like I said, though, we just have to respect everybody's desires, and if that puts us in a position where we're gonna have to go through some protocols, then so be it. We'll go through protocols and we'll do it together as a team.
And I know that you would obviously be speaking about vaccines, this sort of thing as a head coach anyway, but I wonder how your I think you became more outspoken last fall about the ACA and things of that nature. I wonder how that, if at all, influences kind of this conversation now.
Say that again.
I wonder how if you become more maybe outspoken about medical situations in general, considering I guess your position last fall.
Well, the thing we have to be careful about is there's a lot of reasons. I know for me personally, how I feel about things, and because of my situation and circumstances, I had a reason to do what I did. I had a reason to get vaccinated early. I was immune deficient. And so to be careful, I was in that tier 1B, I guess it is, or 1, 2, or whatever it's called. But once I was eligible, I went and got it. My family hadn't got it, and I was concerned for them. And because of that, I practiced the protocols. I went about 4 more weeks before my wife and daughter both got vaccinated. So going 4 more months and just having to do what I had to do. So that's what I'm going to do. I still want to be, like I said, I do want to be an advocate for positive health care. I do. And if speaking out on vaccinations is something that ends up being what I do, then I'll do it. But I'll make sure I'm educated on it. We were very fortunate. We got an opportunity to listen to somebody about the vaccinations, and that's what I'll fall back to.
Thanks, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ron, following up on that, when Montez makes the comments that he makes,
going forward, will you still try and talk to him to try and convince him to get the vaccine, or since
Yeah.
he seems to be?
No, I will. And I'll give him my 2 cents. And again, but at the same time, I gotta make sure he understands I respect him for his own opinion. I mean, I'm not gonna go at anybody and denigrate them because they have a difference of opinion. The young man's got to make his own decision, and and whatever the situation is, the circumstances are, he has to live within his circumstances. So that's the thing we have to understand, folks, is that we have to live in the circumstances we've had, or we're currently in, and that's that's what we'll do.
And then with the receivers, I noticed that position especially kind of rotates in and out depending on, it doesn't even really depend on what your conventional first team is, whenever you guys are mixing and matching the combinations.
What position?
Just receiver.
Okay.
And so I guess just what is it about that position that you don't do that necessarily with, say, the offensive line or safety, for instance? Like you just kind of bring in whoever for a receiver.
Because those guys will probably run about 7-8 miles a game. And so you want to try and keep them as fresh as possible. So that's why you rotate and roll guys in and out. And your star guys are probably going to play 65-70% of the snaps. Your young guys will come in, and the backups will come in and probably play 20 to 30% of those snaps. But it's really about a rotation, just to try and keep your starters as fresh as possible.
Last three: Les, Chris Russell, and Ben.
Hey, Ron. Now that you've kind of gone through this camp and the OTAs and everything, do you kind of see now what you missed last year at this time, and what I don't know how that would have affected start of the season last year in total? Maybe you would be able to quantify that. I don't know if you could.
Well, I think what it would have done, it would have given us a better idea as to what we had to focus in on, what we had to hone up, how we needed to approach it with our players, with our position guys. I think that's the thing that we missed, was not having an understanding, not having a feel. As I told you guys, as I look at it, the mistake I made, was my approach was wrong. I should have made it as big a competition as possible, and that's on me. I wanted to try and give a guy that I thought was ready to take a step, every opportunity, try and build that that rapport, that relationship he needed with his teammates. And that would have been something that we may have been able to see sooner and could have done something differently, perhaps.
I was going to ask you about that, and they brought it up. And did you have enough time, you think, to be able to make that a competition?
Well, I think to a degree, yes. I mean, I gave him 11 straight weeks. 7 of those were in training camp. So I again, as I said, it's just something looking back on it, and hindsight is 20/20. But just looking back on it, that's probably the mistake I made. I should have declared it a competition, and kept it at that.
Thanks,
Chris.
Hey, Ron. Just curious, now that life is sort of normal, how do you, between your health and between COVID and all that stuff, how do you take the next 5 weeks? Go on trips with the family? Do you stay here? Do you come back to the office mid-July? Do you wait until just before training camp? How do you kind of approach it? And what advice do you give to your coaches to recharge their batteries, but also, to be ready? Basically, for the most part, was to get away. I'll spend my first week off here, taking care of little detail things, little things, and then we'll go out. We'll head west. We'll hang there, and then I'll come back a week before we start camp, and start working on again the rest of the little details, getting ready to get down to Richmond for a week, and then come back here and finish up camp. And so I'm really excited about that. I look forward to it. Getting back in touch with our fan base in Richmond and making sure they know that we do appreciate them. That's important. Do you want your coaches to stay basically out of the building over the next 5.5 weeks, or do you want them to kind of be around? Like, how do you kind of balance that? Because you guys are working 100-hour weeks or whatever, and everybody needs a little chance to refresh. They do, and for the most part, I do want them to get away. I mean, I have no qualms with the guy, getting off the grid. I'd love to do that, but I promise you I won't be able to. Mostly because one of you guys, something will happen, you guys will call me. But that's that comes with the job.
But I will get away. I will get to see my family. I had the opportunity last year. I told you guys when I was declared cancer-free, I got to go see my parents and got to hug my mom. So I'll get a chance to go see them now that everybody around them is vaccinated. I'll get to spend a little bit more time with my brothers and their families. So I'm excited about that.
Good.
Ben, last one.
Won't call you.
All right.
Hey, Ron, Sean kindly let me double dip here. With regards to the quarterback situation, when you talk about a competition, how do you envision that going down in training camp? Is it rotating guys, the guys throughout the practices? How do you envision that happening?
Well, you try to create, and I want to try and create situations that are going to be as game-like as possible. Want to be able to rotate guys so that everybody gets an opportunity to work with the same group of players. You just try to do that and create that energy for guys stepping onto the field and knowing that they're working with the ones. And that's one of the things that that we've done in the past. That's how you find out about players. And one of the things that we did, in Carolina was, and to those guys' credit, our coach's credit, a guy that's a backup player will work with the ones, because we don't need to wait until the middle of September in the middle of a game and a guy who's never taken a snap with the number one offensive line all of a sudden get in the middle of having to take a snap with the number one offensive line. John Matsko does a terrific job with that. Pete Haynard, all of our coaches do a terrific job of making sure their guys roll through, and at some point they will get a chance to play with what is the number one group at that time.